Hey, what's up? So, this one is about this idea that is known as little man syndrome. And so, it's a funny topic. I mean, but it's also serious. I mean, so anyways, um, I think that the thing to note about this is that it has nothing to do with the size of the man on the outside. It has to do with the size of the man on the inside, or essentially the boy or the child on the inside, and how big that person feels. Because I know people who are, say, over 6 feet tall and over 200 pounds who have little man syndrome. I know people who are 5 feet tall and weigh 106, whatever pounds, and they have little man syndrome. I know people who are just average height and and uh, and whatever weight, right? And they have little man syndrome. And then I know people who are short who do not have little man syndrome, right? It has nothing to do with the size of the man on the outside, and it has everything to do with the size of the man on the inside. And so the thing is, the way that I've seen this manifest time and time again, it's like you will have a person who, like, there's the typical, stereotypical sort of idea of a person who has little man syndrome that essentially does things to compensate. And this is correct, essentially. But I mean, the way that a lot of the time it's portrayed, and I don't know, maybe jokes and things like that, it's like a little guy will have a big truck or something like that. He has these physical expressions that he uses to compensate for the fact that he is a little person. He feels like a little short person, like we're talking about physically short, and then so he has a big truck and it makes him feel like a big man. He feels powerful, or maybe he puts himself in a position at a company so that he can boss people around, or like this. I don't know. Anyways, but that is not what it is for me. It's more because it's to do with like psychological stuff and essentially subconscious. I don't know about unconscious, maybe, but certainly subconscious. And there has to be a degree of consciousness about it as well. Just like with people who have narcissistic personalities, there is some degree of awareness about it, but they don't know what to do with it. They haven't identified it, and because it's never them, it's always other people, it's hard for them to come to terms with it. But so like with little man syndrome, you have, like, say, people who will make comments who towards others that are belittling, because when they put somebody else down, or condescending, right? Because this is all the same thing. If you can put somebody else down, you can make somebody else feel small. You can make yourself feel big. If you can harshly criticize somebody, and then, like, so then you're, or like say like a person who is very controlling, because if you can control another person, this means that you must have some sort of a status about you. You must be a powerful person, an entity to be reckoned with, if you have this ability to essentially control other people to dictate what other people do and how they behave and whatnot. I mean, so it's a power trip sort of a deal. And so there's certainly those types of behaviors. Some other ones are these types of people, I find, are always they like to make assumptions about things. And so, like, they like to make guesses about stuff. So they'll be like, they'll say things like, oh, so are you going to go do yoga today? And it's like, no, I'm not practicing yoga today. Like, oh, so you're gonna go to the gym? Be like, no, I'm not gonna go to the gym. Oh, so you're gonna do some writing, because they have this thing where it's like they have a little bit of information about you, and so it's like, because they feel insecure, they don't know what to say. They're not a really good conversationalists, and so they're compensating by just kind of like building off of what they know, and if they can guess it and it's right, then they feel good about themselves, right? And for myself, it's a challenging situation. There are times when I will call people out on it, and there are times when I will let it go. It really depends on my situation and whether or not I think it's worth it for me to bring it to their attention. Because sometimes it is not, especially if it's going to create tension in a relationship, whatever that dynamic is. It's just not worth it. You might as well just bite your tongue and let it just like water off a duck's back. Just let it roll off and just give nothing to it, because it's, at the end of the day, not worth it if it's going to have a negative impact on something that you're doing or that you're involved in, right? And so it's a funny thing how some people feel this need to so like there's this thing about trying to guess, so they assume, be like, oh, you're gonna do, it's just like, like what I want to say is like, if you want to know what I'm gonna do with the rest of my day, just ask and I'll tell you. Or if you want to know what I did, just ask, instead of trying to figure it out. Or what's another really annoying one is people who try to finish your speech. So like, I take my time when I am articulating speech. I always like to use the right word. And if that means that I pause for a half of a second while I am searching my cosmos for a word that I feel will be the best way for me to express myself, I will do so. But in this fraction of a second, sometimes you get these people where they try to fill it in then. And in my experience, they're like wrong almost 100% of the time. So really, they're just being super annoying by like thinking that they know what you're going to say. Like they know what you're going to say better than you. Like they know you so well that they can just fill in the blanks, like as if they're helping you. And it is bloody annoying. And I see in these instances, a lot of the time I will tell the person, be like, hey, do not think that you have, it is within your scope of anything to speak for me. I do not require you to talk for me. And just like keep it, and I would also say is like, keep in mind that I could do that for you. I can, when you're saying something, I can just blurt things out and interrupt your own process and be super annoying as well. So just recognize that it goes both ways. And as long as it's said with love and compassion, compassion being a component of love. So as long as it's said with love, then and not in a condescending or whatever kind of a way, or like as a there can't be an energy behind it where it's like you're angry or you're telling them off or you're throwing something in their face, right? It can be handled, and then you can have a positive response to it, and then not have to deal with that level of disrespect anymore. And this is once again why it's so important to give people feedback about the things that they're doing. There's something else about this. So another one too is that I've noticed in certain individuals who I would, in my limited experience, say are dealing with a touch of the little man syndrome and little woman syndrome too. You best believe it that this is, I'm certainly, like, in my mind, there are men and women that I'm referencing right now. I'm thinking about a certain number of people, and certainly there's women there. And so another one too, it's like there is somebody that I know that it's to the point where I can't tell this person anything that I'm going to do, because at that point they take it upon themselves to try to tell me what to do. Be like, oh, well, this is what you should do. This is what, and they just will not stop. They cannot help themselves, because there is this part of them which I would assume is very insecure, that is to do with, it is the inner child, and it has this need to be seen, to be heard, and it expresses itself by as soon as it has an idea of what it can kind of speak to, it just starts without anybody asking for its opinion, because it's like I want to say the word autonomic, but like it is a subconscious thing anyways, a thing that is happening that they're not entirely aware of. I guess you could almost call it a habit, because like a choice is something that you are aware of and you choose to do, whereas a habit is something that happens automatically on more of a subconscious level that you're not quite aware of. And this is the thing, like when you have a child within you, when you're an adult, but you have a little boy or a little girl on the inside who's hurt, who's lost, who doesn't feel like they're is kind of looking for attention, essentially, then it shows up in these funny ways, and it can be really really annoying, but once again it has to be addressed with compassion, because because it's coming, like I was saying, it's not a conscious thing per se, and it's like it's challenging to do that interpersonal work, to do deep work like that. It's not everybody's forte, so you have to kind of handle the situation very delicately, certainly not by getting too angry or whatever, but also you don't have to put up with it, because abuse is abuse. And when somebody is behaving in this way, which doesn't exactly honor both parties in a relationship, because they're on this like programming where they don't realize, but they're doing these things and they're reacting, they're behaving, just like getting mad or about stuff, or just like behaving poorly, reacting to situations as opposed to responding. Like they say, forgive them for they know not what they do. It doesn't help at all to like come down on somebody and like point out something that is very challenging to address. So it requires a lot of maturity and compassion, and I don't really like this word, I don't use it, but for what it's worth, patience. Acceptance of other people, of who they are and where they at, and then also being of service to them by like helping them, if it's that kind of a relationship where it's appropriate to say, hey man, if you want to know what I'm doing, ask. If I'm sharing stuff with you I say to people, it's like, instead of pointing fingers, which is very confrontational, handling it in a much more subtle way is like, you say, just so you know, when you do this, this is the way I feel. This is how it is affecting me, and I don't appreciate it. So instead of pointing a finger at somebody else, you just point the finger at yourself and you say, this is what I'm going through as a result of your behavior, and I don't know what to do, and like, yeah, and keep it short. This is, I think, important not to ramble on, because you could just go into a long drawn out thing, and it's just like, just say the bare bones, something very simple like that, and then let them respond to that. And I think, at least in my experience, people respond very well to it. They say, oh wow, I'm sorry, I didn't really realize, I didn't think about it, and but thank you for telling me, and thank you for being so nice and understanding about it. So yep, that is it on this subject. Yep.